Hey, what's up guys, it's Apollo Uchiha here back with the next part of What If Naruto joined the Anbu. And before continuing this part, if you haven't, please leave a like and subscribe to my channel if you haven't. And without further ado, let's continue our story. Next day, Records Tower. Agent Mouse reporting for patrol duty for the Records Tower. Naruto greeted his temporary commanding officer. Lizard looking straight ahead into the dimly lit office. Lizard glanced at him and the papers Naruto handed him. So, you're the brat dragon promised me for the week. What did you do to get dumped down here? Lizard drawled. It was obvious he was bored. The talk of HQ was that 10 years ago, the man was one of the top Anbus, one of the division captains. But then he received a debilitating injury, ensuring he'd never be an active shinobi again. Problem was, he knew too many secrets and a lot of higher-ups wondered if letting him go would put the security of the village at risk. The council debated for days about having him killed, half-heartedly of course, but the ninjas, they were there, his comrades, or to just trust the man to never give out secrets or be kidnapped by another village for such secrets. The compromised Captain Lizard became the bookkeeper, the man who knew every single grain of dirt on Konoha. He never had a family or real hobbies before, so he lived inside the complex among the shadows of Konoha's darker side. Nothing, sir. I just needed the extra money for intermediate sealing lessons. As an orphan, any extra skill I want to learn, I need to pay for. Oh, sealing is an obscure art. Why would an Anbu wish to learn more than the basics? Lizard knew who Naruto was. Heck, he was one of the Anbu that found Naruto laying next to Kushina's corpse, and all of the Naruto's records were kept in the basement. Dragon had suggested Naruto be given access to that level. About damn time, in Lizard's humble opinion, but Naruto wouldn't know about his heritage until after he found the records, unless someone introduced him to the art. My captain recommended it, and I am picking it up at a relatively pace that is quicker than usual. I am almost finished with level 2, but the barrier between level 2 and 3 makes learning without a tutor unwise. I already littered our training ground with enough potholes. But why would you waste your money on more lessons? The basics are more than enough for a Nanbu squad, and I don't hear any desires to join the barrier corps. The reason the boy wanted to know more was obviously because sealing was in the Uzumaki blood, but that didn't mean Lizard couldn't mess with the brat. His day was monotonous, and picking on youngsters always made his day brighter. I guess I just like it. Naruto couldn't really explain it. Sealing was just enjoyable to him. Even when his shock tags kept exploding, Lizard seemed to be unimpressed. Why not learn a more applicable skill? Naruto seemed to stiffen at this, and Lizard smirked. Degrade an Uzumaki ceiling, and they lost it. He prepared for a heated rant or passionate demonstration. Every Uzumaki he ever met did it. Funjutsu would be valuable to the corps if I can attain level 5 or higher, as then I would be qualified to maintain the security barrier and seals at HQ, thus cutting out the middleman and internalizing more of Anbu's procedures. Except this one, Lizard frowned. He should have known that Killjoy Tenzo would feed that duty crap to his young charge. What Lizard didn't know was that Naruto, like any true Uzumaki, did in fact have a don't mock the seals rant prepared, but like any good Anbu, one that was deathly afraid of their captain and the other superior officer. Naruto bit his tongue and went down the path of not being punished for insubordination. Tsk, you're the only boring one I've met. Now get out of here. Tort is waiting for you in B5 for your shift. Lizard waved Naruto away. Naruto bowed and left, confused at the man's statement. The only boring one I met. Most Anbus are boring though? He pushed those thoughts aside as he reached floor B5. A brown-haired Anbu awaits, his torched mask almost ghoulish in the fluorescent light. Agent Mouse, I'm your commanding officer for the week. You can call me Captain Tort. It is an honor to work with you, Captain. Naruto heart raced, so close when to finding out about his past. Respect. Good for one so young. Which squad do you come from? Team Row, Captain. That explains it. Tenzo's team. Next time you see him, remind that idiot he owes me 600 euros, okay? Tort says offhandedly, like he really didn't care that Naruto's captain owed him so much money. Of course, sir. Best to gain with the neutral route. Good, my little Kohai. He pats Naruto on the head. Much to the blonde's hidden eerie. Follow me. I'll teach you the ropes today, and tomorrow you'll be assigned to a sector to watch over. And with that, Naruto learned the ins and outs of Konoha's Houses of Secret. That evening, Naruto trekked to Anko's playground. the Forest of Death, for his first poisons lessons, mainly how to properly gather the needed herbs and store them to prevent spoilage long term. Gliding over the rooftops, Naruto focused on the small notebook in his hands, where he was carefully mapping out his plans for the rest of the week. For his time with Captain Trout, he had deduced that each Anbu was given half a floor to patrol and report any problems and troubles in, as well as sweeps/dust to keep the files clean. Though Toad said the mice were an ongoing problem to not bother with, Naruto figured that he would focus on his actual job, while pairs of clones transformed into mice would work their way down for the least restricted section to the darkest village secrets files. Naruto wasn't stupid. Reading his file couldn't be excused, but digging into the other files would result in having the cube extracted and pulled into another child, in other words, execution. So the clones had ordered to only open the box labeled Uzumaki Naruto, Kushina Uzumaki, and October 10th. Anything else was off limits. He could only hope that saved him if anyone ever figured out what he was doing. Arriving outside the tall seal-enforced fence, because no way would Konoha have a simple playground guard fence to keep out the tigers, leeches, and whatever other mythical beasts that lived there. He flared his chakra and waited for Anko. He had to spend hours every week with his squad in the hellhole. No way would he go in there alone. "Hey Mouse-chan, welcome to the paradise." Anko's exuberant greeting came from behind him and Akuna was at his jugular. Naruto flinched despite himself. Big mistake. "Oh, I can smell your fear. I like it. Almost as much as I love your blood." A cut appeared above his mask. Anko licked the liquid off of her kunai. "I paid for your dango's tab for help with poisons, not seduction lessons," Naruto said. Anko sniggered but released him. "Ah, is little mouse afraid of a big bad snake? Well, anyway, let's go. The best species of poppy seeds and sleeping herbs are just up ahead." Anko jumped over the fence without a glance back, and after an eye roll, Naruto followed. Over the following 3 hours, Naruto learned the ingredients for not just the sleeping drug, but also a paralyzing one. Anko concentrated and found that the problem was what part of the plant he was gathering from. The top leaves led to death if not treated, while the flowers on the ground of the flower just sedated the victim. "Now, Mousy-chan, it's time for your immunity training," Anko said happily. Naruto paled and backed away. No, that's okay. I have patrol tomorrow anyway." He tried to reason, but Anko grin turned vicious. "And I know that shift isn't for 16 hours. The dose I'm giving will knock you out for 8 the first time." She sticks him with a senbon as he attempts flight. "Don't worry, before the week is up, you'll be immune to 3 times that amount." Her crackle was Naruto's last remembrance of lucidity. Last day of patrol. Naruto Uzumaki, born October 10th, to Kushina Uzumaki and Minato Namikaze. Naruto sucked in a breath at the last name. The 4th Hokage was his father. He, the village scapegoat, was the son of their greatest hero? Oh, the irony. Blinking away tears, the young Anbu read on through the thick box that told him the truth from his birth to the decision to enlist him in Anbu. This mess of emotions all started when Naruto clones on his floor ironically discovered the files box Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze. The clone was confused over if reading it was allowed. The name Namikaze meant somehow Naruto was linked to the man who sealed the QB, but was it just notes over the seal? And if it was something else, what was it? Dispelling its partner, the clone waited patiently, and when its creator arrived in a measured step, it too dispelled, leaving the identity-searching boy to himself. Within an hour, Naruto was livid. He had a godfather, the son in Jiraiya, who had refused to see or have anything to do with him. In Jiraiya's notes to the Hokage, Naruto reminded him too much of a broken past, and he trusted his sensei to raise the boy as his own. Problem was, the council declared Naruto as a military asset at the age of 2, meaning no one could adopt him, not even an old student of his father, Kakashi, or his father's old guard members. That explains Genma offering Senbon lessons for free. It was ridiculous. For what Naruto read within the file, He was deemed too valuable to be entrusted to one person or a clan, but the reports showed that Jinchuriki needs to be filled with love in their lives to keep them loyal. That led to the Hokage befriending him at a young age. The notes from that section mentioned it was originally to build loyalty to the Hokage, but bloomed into an actual like of Naruto. And Naruto entering the academy early at the age of 6 in the hopes of early graduation, his real academy score had been added, and the investigation that followed, leading to the 3 teachers being fired and 2 being dropped from active duty. Naruto felt a vindictive pleasure at that, but it turned into bitterness as he recalled all the times Naruto would swear up and down that he did hit the target and get a 10 out of 10, or what his math test wasn't an EF, only to have his Gigi ignore him or tell him to just show them kindness. When he cried that the Taijutsu instructor hit him harder than the other children, a sabotage subtle swept under the rug, as the official reports just fabricated the need for a new staff or minor infractions that built up for the reason that the teachers were fired. The only good part of his findings was a picture of his parents and him in the belly, and but they were still together. Carefully, Naruto sealed the picture inside a scroll and placed the box back exactly the way it was before. He wiped his tear, knowing that no matter how much he wanted to, he couldn't storm into the Hokage office and demand answers, or track down his godfather to beat him up, or even yell at Kakashi, who was his father's prize student. He had to make a believable reason to how he figured it out, as it was clear nobody wanted him to know. Their reasons, according to the last report from a month ago, was Iwa and Kumo coming after him, but Naruto read the real reason that spelled out among the good intentions. His stability and loyalty weren't unshaken now, and until he proved to be properly stable and loyal to Konoha and the Hokage, he was to kept in dark despite his maturity and rank. Naruto considered waiting until the Hokage made the first move towards reconciliation. Is my pride worth it? He wondered, and came up with the obvious answer: no. His stupid stubbornness was not worth hindering both his career and his knowledge. Time being to mend the fences, he decided. After he was officially in the known of his past, he'd have plenty of time to beat the crap out of his former Gigi. Besides, he did miss the man, despite everything. Hokage office after shift. Naruto breathed deeply before knocking. "Come in," the former familiar aged voice spoke. Naruto opened the door hesitantly. "Ah, Naruto, my boy, do you need something?" Sarutobi was guarded but hopeful. Naruto only showed up in his presence for the guard rotation, and that one mission report both had been awkward, as Sarutobi knew the boy was hiding his bitterness. It was the only reason he kept Naruto's legacy a secret from him, despite his commander's rant of vocal protests. A Jinchuriki that wasn't all the way trusting of its Hokage couldn't be given more reasons to be angry. Once Naruto forgave him and calmed down, he'd take him aside and explain why it was for his own good. Kuma and Iwa were large threats, and that his godfather was always out protecting the village from spies. Even if it was partially bullcrap, the reasoning was sound and believable. "Please forgive me, Naruto. Perhaps some bonding time would work." On that matter of letting Naruto decide, Sarutobi was waiting for Naruto making the first move. Maybe he should just bite the kuna and do it himself. He wasn't just worried for his position, though a few shards had started circling when they figured out he and the village Jinchuriki weren't as chummy as before. Naruto had become a second grandson to him, and he had be damned if he let the boy stay sullen. "Oh, I was just wondering, would you like to go get some ramen? If you're not busy, I mean." Naruto turned away to hide his slight blush. The Anbu posted Gamma Squad, according to the roster, breathed a sigh of relief. Many Anbus were tired of their new Kohai and their esteemed leader not speaking to each other. Mostly quite agreed that Hokage should have made the effort first, but were proud that Naruto took the initiative, demonstrating loyalty and honor. "Of course, let me grab my wallet. My treat. All you can eat." He smiled in amusement when Naruto lit up at the offer and nodded. "Thank you, Kage-sama." Naruto blurted out. He may have to bite down his pride and let his anger go, mostly, at least, but he would never call him Gigi again, both for the principal and to escape his captain's wrath. "You don't have to be so formal, Naruto. Even though you're an Anbu, my Anbu, outside of duty, we can be familiar with one another." The Hokage bit out painfully. The man wanted Naruto to be like he used to be, minus the extreme loudness. "I can't, Hokage-sama." Sarutobi raised his eyebrow at him. "Oh, and why not?" All the Anbu Naruto included grew cold, and Captain Hawk answers. "His own Ryu, Tenzo squad." He said like that answered everything. All the Anbu nodded along, but Sarutobi was still confused. Why would it matter to be on Danzo's squad? He's formal, but what does that matter to Naruto? If he found out I didn't show you proper respect, and he always finds out, then all my ramen would be burned and I'd spend a week being chased by leeches and wood spikes. Naruto shivered. Danzo made it obvious that calling spears by nicknames would be unwise. Just ask Hikaru what happened when he called the Jonin principal Pineapple Summer during a debriefing last year. I see, said Saratobi, understanding completely a captain could punish their subordinates for breaking of any rules, and technically it was against the rules to refer to those in higher positions without proper titles. Minutes later, the Hokage Naruto and the other Anbus were sitting in Ichiraku waiting for the heavy broth the squad being rewarded for stopping Konohamaru for bothering the Hokage all day. So Brad, what have you been up to on your week off? Raven asked. Squad Gamma consisted of Hawk, Raven, Elk, and Lemur, and were oftentimes teamed up with Rio for duty and group practices, making them familiar enough with Naruto's schedule. I took the records rotation, boring, but the paycheck was worth it, Naruto said after eating 6 bowls. At this day not, a week of records rotation did pay nicely, but very few did it willingly, as it was even worse punishment than watching Konohamaru Saratobi at the academy. And Anko taught me 2 poisons, a sedative and a paralyzer, as well as being beginner restrictions and resistance to them. Most of the common ingredients for poisons were free for the taking in the forest of death or surrounding areas, but gathering said ingredients and mixing them properly was too difficult without instructions. Even with a guidebook allowing suppliers to overcharge, Shinobi Hawk thought for a moment before speaking. Say, Naruto, would you be willing to teach me those 2 poisons? My squad does a fair amount of retrievals and prisoners escort. The pre-made ones always bankrupt us at the end. Saratobi frowned slightly at the obvious hardship to his shinobi as he listened, but didn't interrupt, wanting to see how Naruto interacted with his comrades. Sure, if you teach me 2 of those advanced trapping knots, Naruto wasn't running a charity, and the 2 he was talking about was perfect for anchoring wire and a rope in high speed and conditions. And seeing as Naruto had a wind element or could travel to the land of wind, it was needed, but still be able to be activated with a touch of chakra to the lead string. Problem was almost no one was adept at those knots, and the book that contained this knowledge was pricey, but Hawk was the second best trapper in active Anbu Shinobi squad. Naruto was 6th already according to the leaderboards, and thus could do them in his sleep. Deal, Hawk said immediately. Kakashi won't be back from his mission by tomorrow. We can start the lessons then. Naruto smiled and they shook hands, both dropping and drooling at the prospect of new abilities. Of course, even with those knots, you'll still be years behind me, Hawk added, and Naruto scowled slightly. I am pleased to see my Anbu squad work to make each other stronger to protect Konoha. Saratobi chuckled. Naruto gave a real grin from behind his face mask and dug into his 10th miso ramen, and good so. For the next hour, Naruto joked around and reconnected with the Hokage, the Anbu giving them space after eating their share. Tenoichi and Ayame stole glances at the two, but withheld themselves from conversation to allow the much needed bonding time to flourish. 2 days later, Naruto was back for Ro's first practice. In almost a week, his wallet stuffed and a weight off his shoulders. Well, almost. He didn't trust his Kage on a personal level anymore. He'd die for him, defend his decisions for the village, and kill for him. Trust him to tell him the truth? Hell no. The last few months had allowed Naruto to come to the conclusion that while, despite everything, he didn't hate Hiruzen Saratobi and couldn't rationalize his choices for the sake of the village, didn't mean the man wasn't going to incur his wrath later. The Hokage seat was most definitely not for him, and that he personally hated what the position made someone become. His dream of protecting his precious people and getting a ninja cat was noble enough for him. Thank you very much. I'm glad we're all here. I take it you two were productive, Tenzo asked, the gold face he was known for shining despite it being daylight. I did records rotation, learned 2 poison, paralyzing, and sedative. To save our team's budget, I and my clones can almost make a dent into the waterfall. Naruto reported. Ruffle is here. That's great, Mouse. Those 2 will indeed save our wallet. I think you deserve some of my homemade brownies. Everyone else paled at this. Yuga was just as deadly with the kitchen as she was with the sword. Naruto smiled weakly. Of course, senpai. I love some of your brownies. To dump in the garbage later on. Thought Naruto the last part. I launched around for the week and regret nothing, Hikaru said bluntly. Tensor rubbed the bridge of his nose. Hikaru was normally a hard worker, but at times he resembled either a Nara or a hyperactive toddler. Well, Wolf, I'm truly glad you relaxed the whole week, Tenzo said, sounding the opposite. Today we'll be working on combination attacks and underground battle maneuvers, as I noticed on my mission that most can't fight effectively in cramped passageways where just using a jutsu is advised and many formations have to be altered. To fix that, we'll be training them today and then taking the swear shit shift to practice. Naruto bit back a groan. These swears had to be combed through every month to check for any active or traces of intruders. Rarely did a captain request that particular job, and never was it done for trading. Oh, and Wolf, Tenzo smiled placidly. Yes, Captain. I took the liberty of putting you in the corner for the next 5 official office rotations. I hope you don't mind the extra training. Not at all, Captain. I live for it. Wolf replied dryly. Perhaps he should have lied and said he read the beginner medical scrolls he bought. No, the man has eyes everywhere. 3 Tuesdays later, bi-monthly gambling night, civilians and lower-ranking ninjas went away from their teammates after spending hours of every day with each other. It was uncommon for shinobis and civilians in some cases to lead 2 groups of friendship. The on-duty one were ninjas would die for their teammates, and the off-duty acquaintances that never became more than skin deep. Once one reached Jonin level, however, they realized sticking with those you would take a kunai for made for a much more relaxing downtime. Many Jonin associated with only other Jonin's Anbus, and the fewer up and coming Chunis, it allowed them to vent about the scumbags on their last A rank seduction mission or whine about the Hokage signing a squad too many assassination missions in a month, causing the squad to contemplate whining like Ganin for something new. It was this comradeship that kept each one sane and voluntarily hanging out with their teammates away from work more times than not. This was the scene Anbu Squad Row was participating in with others for their station. Naruto stared at his target with calculating eyes, who stared back at him through the dragon mask. Neither would give away anything with their faces. A true test for Naruto's luck was about to happen. He planned to clean his commander out after catching him red-handed, swiping his ramen and placing fresh vegetables in their spot. Pranking was forbidden and unwise, as Dragon seemed to have a Naruto sense, but humiliation had the bi-monthly poker game that he could do. That, and if the gossip was right, his winnings would let him barter for something useful later. Something wrong, Mouse? Dragon asked, coolly, hiding his mirth. Stealing Naruto's ramen after every shopping trip proved to be an excellent workout in avoiding traps. Now he could clean the boy out of his savings and thus make him reliant on the approved supplies Dragon dropped off. It was foolproof. Too bad he never heard of Naruto Uzumaki's luck, and the other Anbus and Jonins hid their knowledge of the fact well. Even the Hokage had to hide his eagerness at Dragon's getting his ass handed to him. The man had foolishly bet an 8-year-old Naruto he couldn't infiltrate T&I and swipe Ibiki's favorite torture chain. 2 days later, a dusty and tired Naruto set chain on Sarato's paperwork and walked out while cackling. He learned his lesson. No, of course not, Dragon-sama. Let's have some fun. Naruto smiled brightly. The cloth mask concealed its morphing into a smirk. 30 hands later, and Naruto was the proud owner of Dragon's most prized belongings, his limited edition collection of Icha, all 40 volumes. They had bet their most treasured objects after Dragon lost all his on-hand money on A-rank mission worth, and Dragon accepted, thinking his hand was good enough and he'd win both his money back and whatever was sealed in the scroll Naruto carried around for the past several weeks. He suspected it was something from Naruto's files, and he couldn't let him keep it for his own security. I give up, Dragon finally said, the pain evident in his voice. Naruto was standing there on his own. Nobody moved as he got up and left the room, too prideful to attempt a trade back. 3 seconds passed before the room erupted. Yes, that's my Chibi-kohai, the only Anbu to beat Dragon at anything. That's right, bitches, Team Row rules. Hikaru boasted to the room, which everyone ignored. Naruto escaped the headlock Hikaru tried with practiced ease. Icha Icha. Looks boring, Naruto said innocently, as he flipped through it, pretending to not notice the spike of killer intent from Yagao and surprisingly Tenso that died down as he threw them in pile. Kakashi and Saratobi gasped. If you do not wish to honor the sacredness that Icha Icha Empire is, I would gladly take it off your hands, my cute little student, Kakashi said, way too cheerfully. Saratobi snarled at his subordinate for trying to steal his precious. Don't be silly, Kakashi. Naruto knew I would be the best choice to guard such a precious supply. The two men glared at each other. Saratobi prepped to summon Enma while Kakashi inched his headband up. Everyone else in the room sweat dropped, and Hayate prepared to play the part for Proctor if needed to be. Naruto, however, wasn't going to let that happen. I might be willing to trade for them. What to have? Naruto asked in full bartering mode. At this point, the Jonin were slightly shocked at the prospect of 12-year-old trading this much for something, while the few Anbus just shook their heads. Naruto had started get a reputation for trading other members for training, whether it be survival lessons or tactics or occasional jutsu. Team Gamma was a prime example, as Hawk and Naruto had an ongoing account. Kakashi knew the drill and put his best deal forward. Give me those precious and I'll teach you both a D-rank jutsu for fire and earth style, and lightning, and buy you a chakra conductive Chukoto. I know you've been eyeing one and that you wouldn't be able to afford it until after the exams. Even with the pocket change there, most in the room believed Naruto would agree instantly, which he would have, except the Hokage, whom he was back on civil terms with, interjected. Naruto, my segregated grandson, give me those books, and not only will I double Kakashi's offer, but I will tell you your parents' identities. The room stiffened. Naruto's lineage wasn't hard to pinpoint. Heck, he looked like a clone of his father, and now began to act like him. Too, since Tenzo gained command over him. Oh, you mean Minato, Namikaze, and Kushina Uzumaki? Naruto said with a cocky smirk. Saratobi and Kakashi face faulted while the others broke out, laughing or gasped. How do you know? My mother's name is on the memorial stone, Hokage-sama, and as for my dad, he paused for dramatic effect. I didn't until you confirmed it. Naruto lied, covering up his borderline illegal searches. Saratobi went bug-eyed at this, falling for it completely. To be honest, the Hokage was just using his observing bartering to tell Naruto his parents' identity. Kakashi knew, the others room members knew, and Naruto knew the Hokage had been chickening out from having a private heart-to-heart on the matter. It was the only reason Naruto didn't go nuts on the man for his little ploy. Kakashi chuckled, remembering another blonde who had a flair for making higher-ups tell him what he wanted to know without lifting a finger. But you know, Hokage-sama, I'll accept Kakashi's senpai's deal, and you'll still be giving me everything you've offered minus the information. Why would I do that? Saratobi demanded, miffed at being outmaneuvered, and still peeved at himself for not being able to work himself up to have a private conversation with Naruto. Naruto inspected his nails. Oh, just because if you do, I'll train you in the art of defeating paperwork. He pulled out his trump card, which he would have used soon to discover his parents' identity. Soon enough anyway, now it could be put towards more training. Saratobi was at his side, bowing down. Please teach me, Naruto-sensei. Very well, my young grasshopper. Shadow clones. Now you can train me after the Chunin exams. Kakashi-senpai, I'll see you Sunday, where we can learn a jutsu for 2 weeks. I'll have the Anbu supply store put my weapons on your tab. Now I can have a backup Chikoto. Oh, and don't worry, I'll forgive you. Will be pranking you non-stop after the Chunin exams, but I forgive you as long as tomorrow I can talk to you privately about it. I have an yearly office carding. So, Jane, and Naruto sunshined away before anyone could get a word in. 5 minutes later, Saratobi smiled gently and then chuckled. He wants to talk tomorrow, and he forgave me. Maybe there is hope for me yet, even if I will have to go through his vindictive side of pranks first. Excuse me, I have paperwork to give to clones, and the god of shinobi follow his surrogate grandson example, leaving behind a stunned crowd. Does anyone else feel inferior to the 12-year we could all beat into next week with our hands tied behind our back? Kenma managed to ask after a moment. Absolutely, was the anonymous reply. Hikaru felt the need to soothe their prides a tiny bit. If it makes you feel any better, we'd have to fight him with only one hand restrained. He graduated from no hands last week, he joked. Somehow that made them feel worse. Naruto's apartment. Naruto lays awake, giddy but saddened by the night. On one hand, he not only confirmed his parents' identities and set up the basis for any revenge pranks, but he got 8 new jutsus in the making. Being a Jinchuriki had the perks of having enough chakra to perform a variety of jutsus from every element, even those opposite in nature. On the other hand, he had expected a different scenario for his heritage reveal, something more heartfelt. At least he had a meeting tomorrow to talk to the Hokage about it in private. The last few months had been the highlight of Naruto's life. No one looked down on him except some older Anbu from the other squads, but Dragon put that to rest quickly during the first inter-squad training day. Tenzo told him last week how they were ordered to steer Naruto away from the village's eye while on the 3-month grace period. Team Ro all looked guilty at that and believed Naruto would hold a grudge over it. He didn't. In fact, Naruto only snuck away to Ichiraku's occasionally now, much to Dragon's Eerie, who for some reason detested his habit. Otherwise, he shopped, ate, and hung out at the upper level shinobi only establishments, becoming a part of the older generation of shinobi circle, realizing it was overall better than his life before with civilians and younger shinobis. Many hardly gave him a second glance. Now, after Hikaru had paraded Naruto around to the hotspots 2 weeks after his enlistment, his life was just beginning to settle before tonight happened. 2 knocks were heard on Naruto's door. "Naruto, I know you're up. I'm coming in." Kakashi's muffled voice grows distinct as he works his way to Naruto's bedroom. Entering quietly, the copy ninja takes in the slightest messy room and quarter-filled bookcase. On it were novels of everything from chakra control to a few comics. There was a even lone cookbook for shinobi. "I see you took up reading," he asked, a bit surprised. Naruto wasn't exactly the most studious ninja, based on his academy records for his part. Naruto glared, and in the moonlight it was terrifying to see those icy blue eyes almost glow. "I always liked to read, senpai. I just never had enough money to afford more than a couple before. The yearly break-in on my birthday would destroy them. My academy grades were falsified. I made an A's and B's on every test for the last 2 years, but Mizuki graded for Iruka. What went unsaid was him changing the papers out, and Kakashi winced at his own stupidity. It's okay, I know it will take years before people see me as more than a failure and a prankster. Reputation didn't help any things. You do have a larger vocabulary now than a few months ago," Kakashi commented. Naruto smiled slightly. "Yes, well, that's Captain Tenzo for ya. He doesn't tolerate row members being unrefined in speech, so he signed vocabulary work to me. I don't want to talk about it." Both chuckle at the abnormal Yuga and his ability to cause Tenzo headaches as well. The room then falls to an uncomfortable silence, and Naruto fidgets. "Is there something you need, or do you just like breaking into your neighbors' homes in the middle of the night?" Kakashi sputtered. "No, I came here to talk. Your father was my sensei, and that's why I started teaching you, though. Now I do it because you are my favorite student, more so than my idiot team." It was true. Kakashi often grumbled about the same 3 idiots at dinner. "Oh, did they love me?" Naruto looked up with glistening eyes, asking the question he had wanted to ask for years but could never muster the courage to. The record's discovery made him even more curious. Kakashi scoffed. "Love you? They adored you. In fact, when Sensei heard that Kushina was pregnant, he fainted before using Hiroshi to announce it to all his close friends. There was one time," and stories passed by Kakashi's lips like a dam being released. Both shinobis found solace and closure with each other as words uttered until they found themselves clutching their sides from the great ramen chase that resulted in Minato proposing to Kushina at Ichiraku. "My dad knew how to pick them," and conversation stopped as Kakashi Anbu tattoo plus with Naruto glowed. Village infiltrated. 8 alive perpetrators attempted assassination of Hokage. Failed, but the survivors on the run. All active squads. Plan Delta. Retired and reserves. Report to Hokage Tower. Naruto blunt chilled even as he unsealed his spare uniform and mask. After months of drills and mourning with Guy, he was dressed in 30 seconds. Without a word, Naruto leaped through his window and towards the Inuzuka compound. Kakashi going the opposite direction to meet the reserves captain. Naruto landed in the meeting spot along with the 2 other agents and Aburame and Hikaru. Wolf lemur. He saluted without a word. The three turned their attention to Tazumi Nizuka, the Anbu top search and retriever. Even in her middle age, Naruto was often included in the division's simulations because of his clones, and as such, Tazumi knew his abilities. Listen up, she barked. Eight ninjas wearing scratched headbands of Kiri escaped throughout the eastern forest after a failed ambush on Hokage-sama on his way home after a stroll. His guards were knocked unconscious. We managed to kill 10 of them, so there's 8 stragglers. Everyone to your assigned teams for this. Mouse, 200 clones, 3 for each team, and the rest are pursuers. Naruto complied, and 200 puffs later, the Anbu were off with the clones to pursue. Naruto sat down next to Hana, Tsuzumi's daughter, who was on medical leave and had a headset connected to each captain. Meditating, Naruto waited for a clone to dispel with information, which he would then tell Hana to reply to the captains. As the raider couldn't handle it, for everyone was talking at once, not to mention they were ridiculously expensive and the tattoos couldn't go as fast and were used as a mask call mostly. Less than 20 minutes passed before a rush of memories hits Naruto. Hana, 5 clicks north, east, blue squad. Clone found the trails headed towards Royce. Hana spoke rapidly into her mic and the Anbu began making their race forward. Blue squad. Good work, Mouse. Shit, they found 5, but the last 3 are missing. She cursed before a kunai embedded into Naruto's shoulder. Hana grabbed his collar and yanked him through the air to avoid an explosion knot. A ninja with a slashed Kiri headband landed opposite to them, holding an unconscious and beaten Sasuke Uchiha. The other 2 at his side stepped forward, ready for a fight. I think we found the missing 3, Naruto commented dryly, and Hana glared. Now dip butt. These 3 smell at least Chunin level 2. Damn, the whole clan and Anbu are out, and my Ninken joined in. Their backup at the tower was on their way, but still 6 minutes out, and no tracker Anbu were sweeping further away places of interest for sabotagers, stragglers. We just have to hold them for 6 minutes. I'm sure we can do it. Here's what I think we're gonna do and make it work. Captain taught me this strategy during shogi. Naruto whispered, Hana looking unsure as the insane idea based solely on assumption and hoping was laid out in a matter of seconds, but she told her rational side for her brain. They either went through with it or the 2 forming seals in front of her would kill them. As the 2 in front created a mist, Hana Kaviramis with a Naruto clone on the rooftop, who is hinged to look like her. She waits for the opening. They'd have one shot to take them out. A little Anbu wants to play, huh? What point should I take? Heart? Their necks? So young and brave. Too bad you have to die. The taller of the 3 cackle, and his footstep echoes. 4 Naruto clones holding kunai search around the mist using scent and sound. Not that it helps, and 3 are taken out quickly. The real Naruto ducks under a katana, intends on lopping off his head with enough force to cut a wall. In the process, Naruto kicks him with his own kunai in the leg. He smirks and does the one thing Tenzo always scripted about. He talked to an opponent in a fight. You're not so tough. I've had villagers hit harder than you. I recognize you from the bingo book, Rayano, aka the Mr. One-Fanged Dragon, for your abilities in Kenjutsu. AB class, I believe. But that last attack felt more like a Genin, swatting a training post on an empty stomach. The newly identified Rai fell for it, hook, line, and snicker. Roaring in frustration, Naruto easily waves in and out at the close-range ragged attacks that had a basic pattern. He was less adept than Yugo at the art, and Naruto got in 2 other jabs, this time in the arm as he launched himself above using Rai's sword as a springboard. From what he remembered from the bingo book tournament that Anbu hosted every month, the captain's way of keeping everyone up to date. Rai was quicker to anger and not very bright. His only skill was brutal assaults and the hidden misjutsu, not anything that required a lot of brain power. Rai looks confused as he felt his body going stiff before not being able to move at all. Bingo, Naruto says before a clone slices his throat from behind. Naruto goes through a few seals, releasing a windstall. Great breakthrough. The already weakened mist is blown away completely, allowing Hana her shot. Katsuga, Even without her partners, her drill attack hits the second one easily as a clone had sliced his hand before being dispelled, and he was under the short-term paralysis. The third one looked slightly nervous as he held an Uchiha. Don't come any closer or I'll slit the throat. I swear I'll do it. Let me go and I'll... His eyes widen and he screams as a Chidori is slammed through his chest. A murderous-looking Kakashi appears from behind, snatching away his student. Without a glance, he offed to take Kakashi to the hospital. Several and of the reserves and active shinobi and Anbu surround Hana and her kill, while Dragon and Tenzo stand in front of Naruto, who was winding down from the adrenaline. Mouse report Dragon commands, snapping Naruto back to his situation. After we relayed my clone's finding, it became clear that there were 3 missing from the group when a kunai hit my shoulder. Here Naruto winced at the memory. A medic wordlessly healed the wound that was rapidly closing on its own. Hana prevented me from potential injury from an explosive note. The enemy who was holding Sasuke Uchiha hostage created a mist and tried the silent killing thing Kakashi-senpai told me about after his wave mission. Anyway, Hana waited on the roof while I got both fighters. The third hung back, with kunai soaked in the paralyzing poison. It worked and I was able to distract Rai from the poison until it took effect and killed him. Hana got her as well after I blew the mist away, while Kakashi-senpai took out the third man by taking Sasuke to the hospital, I believe. Well, that worked fine. I remember that strategy being a group effort, not a solo one. Mouse. If they had an immunity to the paralysis or were intelligent, then we would have died. I know, Captain, but they were from water. This variation I used is native to fire, and as much I took a gamble. Otherwise, a full-on battle wouldn't have worked. I would have had to resort to Kenjutsu, some ninjutsu and shadow clones. One Rai was better at and the other 2 weak on strategy or easy to dodge. Naruto tilted his head defiantly at his captain. It was the best plan he could think of as Hana was on injury leave and Naruto wasn't fully equipped or with his team. Tenzo sighed after a moment and Dragon nodded. You did well, Mouse. Even if you did rely on a huge gamble, we'll work on strategies at the next team dinner, so you won't have to resort to such an iffy plan again, okay? Tenzo said after giving Naruto a final once over. Dragon chuckled a bit. He cares for you. Was fronting the entire run over here. You are on standard medical leave for 2 days. Be at HQ at 10 AM for personal training. I'll be working with you until your meeting with the Hokage, and Dragon leaves to find where the mole was, leaving a trembling Naruto behind him. Dragon was a patient man, he liked to believe, but now was not the time to play the board, with deliberation and waiting around. 22 shinobis, all defectors from Mist, staged a fake attack on the Hokage and bombed a few other buildings of North, all for the sake of stealing a high-value target, the last loyal Uchiha. First, they were headed towards Rice, where Jiraiya's spy network and his men reported a new hidden village, one that coveted missing ninjas and bloodlines. Dragon knew he was not seeing something a final piece, such as a small village wouldn't normally attempt the area of the strongest of the 5. In exasperation, he stormed to the T&I, with one survivor was hanging on life there. As this is where I'm going to be leaving off this part, guys. I hope you like this one, and if you do, please leave a like and subscribe to my channel. And this is Apollo Uchiha, and I'm signing out. Peace.